Hello viewers and welcome back to McElroy's Motors, the home of the weird, the boring, the projects, and the adventures. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. You guys are joining me outside my new apartment for yet another reaction video. And what video we'll be reacting to today is the 1988 Eagle Premiere review done by MotorWeek. MotorWeek themselves have been reviewing cars for the most part of 45 years now, and I have personally been to the Maryland Public Television Studios where MotorWeek currently films. And as I currently daily drive a 1990 Eagle Premiere and work on restoring it because I had one as my first car, I would like to see a different take on it besides my own. And before I do get started, I do want to say a massive thank you to 1,000 subscribers because I never thought my YouTube channel would actually get this far. And it seems pretty crazy because I remember when my YouTube channel was hitting 100 subscribers, 200 subscribers, 300 subscribers, 400 subscribers, 500 subscribers, and on it goes. So to reach 1,000 and have people follow me from all over the world simply means absolutely everything to me, and I thank you guys for all your contribution and support. So with out of the way, it is now time to cue a whole different theme song.
McElroy's Motors, home of the weird. Driving with a box strapped to the roof, destinations will be near. Home of the boring, up high in the mountains. JB Weld in your hands won't be ignoring. Home of the projects, fixing up the odd cars. The old powertrain checks. Home of the adventures, going high, going far, going where it seems impossible. Just do not forget to have fun for your adventures. McElroy's Motors.
Now before I crack on and do my reaction video of this retro review done by MotorWeek, I just want to let you guys know that I own absolutely none of MotorWeek's content. It is all owned by Maryland Public Television Studios as well as PBS themselves. I do not want to have a copyright strike because this is just my honest opinion, and I know that All Cars with John did his own reaction video of the Eagle Premiere review as well, so I would like to give my personal take on the car itself. So let's get started, because I am freezing my butt off just standing out here, despite being August.
MotorWeek is made possible by Rock Auto and Tire Rack.
Oh, we are off to a good start already. Just hearing that short orchestral bit at the beginning of the MotorWeek clip, that takes me back to my childhood. While many kids my age were too busy watching Barney or Caillou, that was my theme song for the night.
We begin our show this time with a brand new car caught up in the drama of a hasty marriage of two car companies. The car is this Renault, now to be called Eagle Premiere.
Yeah, that is one thing I never really understood, why Chrysler rebranded the Renault Premiere as the Eagle, creating a whole new sub-brand and one people weren't very familiar with. It really didn't make much sense, and it definitely proved to be the downfall of what is a very excellent car. But I would often say that my car is not so much a four-wheeled means of transportation, but more so an identity crisis.
The design began in France, was vastly changed by American Motors here, and is among the many AMC assets now owned by Chrysler. You know, most reports call AMC's Jeep division the biggest prize of the merger with Chrysler. But future opinion may focus on this Premiere.
Those are some strong words there, John, because French cars never really caught anyone's imagination here in the United States. I mean, sure, they were very popular in Europe, but they just struggled to gain traction because they were just known for being too out of the box. And the Eagle Premiere is definitely one of those cars. That being said, however, Chrysler, or Stellantis, if you want to call it that, still owns Jeep today, so at least it's got that going for it. But for me, I just don't see Chrysler succeeding for much longer because Chrysler, as of right now, just sells one vehicle. A vehicle that hasn't received a full redesign in 10 years.
This Taurus class design and its new Canadian assembly plant are as modern as any in the world. The question's now, just how good is the Premiere, and what is Chrysler planning to do with it? Let's begin searching for answers by admiring the handsome Giugiaro-pinned lines of the 1988 Eagle Premiere.
That part is most certainly true. The Premiere and its kin, the Dodge Monaco, were designed by legendary Italian designer Giorgetto Giugiaro, famous for designing legendary cars like the BMW M1, the original Volkswagen Golf, the Lotus Esprit, and of course the DeLorean, and some Eastern Bloc cars like the Yugo Sana/Florida, as well as the FSO Polonaise. Now, the Eagle Premier definitely failed to gain some traction because it looked a little too conservative for being an all-new American car. Sure, the Ford Taurus and Mercury Sable, being launched 2 years earlier, were completely different and far more radical, giving like a more rounded look. And the Eagle Premier just looked a little too conservative because it was tracing its European roots. But compare this car to, let's say, the Pontiac 6000, it definitely looked a little outdated.
It's available in 2 trim levels, a well-appointed LX and sportier ES model. Giugiaro passed on the Ford Taurus Aero look in favor of a more traditional European design. The Premier favors the Audi 5000, so it's handsome without looking dated. By refusing to blindly follow the Coke bottle styling theme, the Eagle Premier should attract the large segment of buyers that don't like the totally rounded look. Our only suggestion might have been a less upright grille.
I know John complained about the grille being a little too upright, but personally I think it looks great. Compare that to the tiny little testicle that's on the front of the Ford Taurus, and I just think the grille looks better on the Premier. And I mean, sure, the Ford Taurus was all about aerodynamics, but then again, the Eagle Premier, despite its boxier appearance, turned out to be more aerodynamic.
Yet the Premier's use of semi-flush glass and careful detailing keeps wind resistance low. Moving inside, you quickly understand why the Premier is classified by the government as a large car.
Hold the brakes on that one, John. Hold them for a minute. I gotta be honest with you, my Eagle Premier, the one I had after high school, had cloth seats. So looking at that interior shot, oh my gosh, does that take me back. For those who have not sat in an Eagle Premier with cloth seats, I can swear to you, by the grace of God, it is like heaven in a car. If you want something even more comfortable, sit in a 1970s Cadillac. I still recall how comfortable my first car was, and yes, my current one has leather seats, but the cloth seats are where it's at. It's like sitting in a luxurious hotel suite bed. I even fell asleep in my first car when I first bought it because it was just that comfortable. I remember that day like it was yesterday.
Room is generous in all dimensions and beats the Taurus up front.
A room inside an Eagle Premier is actually fairly sizable, to say the least. I remember when I had my first car, my grandmother at the time had a 2003 Acura TL, and my sister was just starting to form a small Caribbean-style band, and I had to haul her gigantic Caribbean instruments in the backseat of my car. But when I was not doing that, I remember myself, my grandmother, my brother, and my sister would cram ourselves into the car, and we would put my grandmother's wheelchair in the trunk of my car with room to spare. And it was perfectly capable. And that is pretty shocking because if you look at this picture of a 2000 Honda Accord, and if you were to guess right away which car has the shorter wheelbase, I can guarantee you, if you guessed a Honda Accord, you would be wrong. The Eagle Premier actually has a shorter wheelbase. The wheelbase on the Eagle is 106.3 inches, and the wheelbase of the Accord is just about 3/4 of an inch longer.
The ES has comfortable front bucket seats with tilting backrest, and power adjustment is optional. Our only driving position complaint involves the gas and brake pedals. They're too close together for safety.
I'm guessing French people must have tiny feet or tiny shoes, because I think by 1990, Chrysler had that issue corrected, because the pedals in my car are still a little too close together, and you notice that while you're wearing steel toes, but if you're wearing regular tennis shoes, it's not too bad.
Bucket seat fans also get a large center console to augment the Premier's deep glove box. Plus, there's even a Chrysler-style cup holder for your morning coffee.
Ah, yes, the famous glove box lid cup holders. Famous for one thing, hitting a bump and your drink goes flying, and it'll be out of the conversation or perhaps even out of the entire car before you know it. Best part is to use those when you're in a drive-in movie theater, and thank God there's one nearby my new apartment, so that'll come in handy. But if you want to use those on a road trip, forget about it.
The LX comes standard with a supportive 3-passenger split bench seat that can also include power adjust. Many LS owners will also no doubt opt for the Premier's digital instrument package, which we found somewhat hard to read at a glance.
The Eagle Premier I currently own now does not have the digital gauge package, and I've owned 4 of them over the years, and I've never seen one with it, so I'm wondering if it was just something that the prototypes had or something, because as far as I know, all the Eagle Premiers featured in the car club don't have it either. But I wish it somehow they did, because I think it complements the car quite well.
Far better is the standard white on black analog readouts. Our ES also included an optional tach and oil pressure gauge. Gauges can be flanked by a trouble maintenance monitor on the left and a multifunction trip computer on the right. Overall, the US-designed interior of the Premier has many unique features. We like the fact that when you adjust the steering column, attached pods with light, wiper, and climate controls move with it. Unfortunately, most of the controls cannot be operated without moving a hand from the wheel. Airflow from the climate control system is excellent. However, you do have to punch through a range of options to get to your choice. Its detached readout is up on the instrument pod.
And the climate control system in the Eagle Premier, though very advanced for 1988, it definitely proved to be a bit gimmicky. When you're turning up the heat in the Eagle Premier, let's say if you have it set for 60 degrees and you want to crank it up to 90 degrees, you have to go punch, 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 punch on that tiny little button on the steering wheel control pods. It is a bit frustrating if you're not used to it. For me, I absolutely love it because I love the weird cars, but for someone who is used to like the rotary climate controls or the sliders, which were common in the 80s, it can be a bit frustrating. But if you think that's frustrating, look at cars of today, how they have the climate controls on touchscreens and you have to do the same thing. Punch, 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 punch. I do think with the climate controls being on the steering column themselves, I think is a much better option, but it's definitely a little distracting. So my advice to you, if you do own one of these and you want to adjust the temperature, make sure the car is fully stopped.
Initially, all automatic Premiers will come with a column-mounted shift lever. Its odd shape is dictated by the tilt steering wheel and control pod.
I just love how that lady is just caressing the column-mounted shifter that the early Premiers had between 1988 and 1989. Mine being a 1990 model was one of the very first ones to have a floor shift. And that continued on until the end of production after the 1992 model year. I do think, for the record though, I think the floor shift was the better option because Eagle was supposed to be like a European subdivision of Chrysler, so I think it makes it look more European having a floor shift. But that column shift, though it was very nostalgic, bringing back some memories for some people growing up in the 80s, and my 1989 Eagle Premier did in fact have a column shift. I do love the floor shift a lot more.
Just about everything we've noted about the great front interior space is also true about the rear. Doors are large and access is easy. But it was surprising to find a new family sedan without rear shoulder belts.
Correct me if I am wrong, because I could very well be, but I think rear shoulder belts were also added for the 1989 model year, maybe towards the end of that, because my 1989 model still had rear lap belts, but my 1990 model has rear shoulder belts. So I do not know when they were added, but I do know it was a bit of an afterthought for them to add it as well.
The Premier also has the large trunk space demanded by family car buyers. It's wide and deep with a very low liftover. Now this is all very well, but cars are built to be driven. So we took our pre-production ES to our test track to see what it would do. Frankly, after the lackluster performance of past US Renault products, we weren't expecting much. So we were pleasantly surprised with the Eagle Premier's good 0 to 60 time of 11.7 seconds.
John here is for sure right, because I have driven a Renault Alliance, and even though it had the larger 1.7 liter 4-cylinder made it to a 5-speed manual transmission, and the fact I do drive an Eagle Premier every day, I can honestly say the acceleration is definitely lackluster by today's standards. The Alliance I drove definitely felt slower than my Premier, but then again my Premier has a V6. but if I were to guess the 0 to 60 time of the Alliance, I think it was maybe like 15 seconds. So to do 0 to 60 in 11 to 12 seconds was definitely competitive back in the day, but by today's standards, that is seen as a bit of a joke. My buddy Brandon had driven my Eagle Premier previously, and he was shocked by how underpowered it is. I mean, like I said, it was competitive back in the day, but by today's standards, it is lackluster.
It also accomplished the quarter-mile run in 18.5 seconds at 76 miles per hour. The ability to do this comes from a fuel-injected 3-liter overhead cam V6. It's from the same engine family as the one powering our long-term Peugeot 505 STX. Here it produces 150 horsepower and 171 pound-feet of torque. While the V6 is standard on the ES grade cars, the base engine on the LX is Jeep's strong 2.5-liter inline 4-cylinder. Transmission choices begin with a 4-speed manual with a 5-speed due later. There is naturally an optional 4-speed automatic, which is the only transmission available on the V6.
I do not know if there is any Eagle Premiers out there with a factory manual transmission. I think it was canceled out completely by Chrysler, as was a 2-door version of this car. So I do not know if any have snuck through the net or not. My guess is probably not. As for the 4-cylinder engine though, I think some actually did go into production, but I do not know how many are left. I think they're all extinct by now. Which is a bit of a shame because the 4-cylinder was the better engine, despite having 39 horsepower less. The V6, though, had 150 horsepower, which was significantly more than the Chevrolet Lumina, which was launched for the 1990 model year, and definitely a lot more than the Ford Taurus. I mean, you got to think here. The Chevrolet Lumina also was offered as a minivan, and even though it was very cutting edge, the 3.1-liter V6 that the Chevrolet Lumina, its kin, the Pontiac Transport, and indeed the Oldsmobile Silhouette only had 120 horsepower. And that made the van very sluggish. I can only imagine it would have been like taking an early Lumina Silhouette / Pontiac Transport minivan on a road trip with a bunch of kids, a bunch of luggage, animals perhaps. It must have been heinously slow, especially up in the mountains.
Premier handling is better than you might expect too. While there is plenty of plow and body rolling corners, the Premier's characteristics are more German than French. The power steering is well boosted, yet gives plenty of feedback. Even so, our Premier ES was a handful in emergency maneuvers.
And I'm not being biased here. John is absolutely right. The Premier's handling is a lot better than one would expect. It definitely feels like an American car, like a Oldsmobile 98 of the era, when you're going in a straight line. But when you take it into a corner, let's say on a 2-lane back road through, let's say, a national park or whatever, it handles wonderfully. It definitely does not feel like a French car. You think a French car would just lean in the corners, and that's what the Renault Alliance that I drove did. It rolled like crazy, but it was very comfortable. The Eagle Premier, on the other hand, was very, very well balanced. It definitely offered the perfect blend of ride and handling. It was immaculate. I am not sure what's going on outside right now, but I hope it's something that is not too dramatic.
It might have been worse were it not for the 20% stiffer springs on the ES and its sticky Goodyear Eagle GT Plus 4 tires. The LX comes standard with high-mileage Michelin rubber. On the highway, the Premier is a superb long-distance cruiser. Ride is smooth but without any floating sensation. EPA fuel economy ratings on the V6 are expected to be 17 city and 26 highway, so our test result of 21 seems right on target.
Yep, the Premier offers absolutely zero floating sensation. Honestly, it's like a magic carpet ride. To say it handles like it's on rails, I wouldn't go that far, but it's definitely not bad for what is a 4-door family car. And bear in mind, when the Premier was first launched, being a column-mounted shifter, it was able to carry up to 6 passengers.
All models come with vented disc brakes in front and drums in the rear, but we found brakes to be our single biggest disappointment with the Premier. Stopping distances were good at only 114 feet from 55, but modulation is poor and it's easy to lock up the rear wheels. We're told anti-lock is a future Premier option.
Yeah, Braking on the Premier, at least for the earlier models, was definitely a bit sketchy, especially if you had to suddenly stop, let's say for a deer or any other animal that jumps out into the middle of the road. I think by 1990, though, they had switched over to four-wheel disc brakes, and I think my 1991 Eagle Premier ES Limited, my third Premier, did in fact have anti-lock brakes, but that system was so troublesome. I had to fix it at least 6 to a dozen times just to keep the car on the road. And also by 1991, they got rid of the service monitor on the cars as well, which I thought was a bit of a missed opportunity. But then again, I'm not Chrysler. But coming back to the ABS system, GM offered ABS in the Cavalier starting in 1992 as standard, and that was a far better system.
And in our safety check, the Premier's absence of anti-lock, along with no front passive restraints or rear shoulder belts, is unfortunate. Indeed, sloppy braking performance is the top item on our list of Premier misses, followed by lesser things such as poor pedal placement and fussy-to-operate climate controls. But this must be weighed against a long list of hits that include its handsome styling, generally clever interior design, generous passenger room, highly usable trunk, and good front-drive V6 performance. As for Premier competition, Ford's Taurus has better braking performance, plus a solid, well-established reputation. On the other hand, the Audi 5000S handles far better, but is much more expensive than Premiers that should range in price between $11,000 and $16,000. So, how good is the Premier? Well, in our opinion, it's very good, with as much going for it as any car in its class. With a sportier two-door coupe to follow, the Premier should carve itself a respectable share of the market. American Motors' last product was one of its best.
Though I do give John Davis the benefit of the doubt by saying American Motors' last product was one of its best, I honestly think the Eagle Premier was the best product they did. You gotta think, American Motors was the underdog in the automotive industry. They never had the status that the big three, Ford, GM, and Chrysler did. So they were trying to be a bit of a game changer, but sometimes it would not work out in their favor because by 1987, when the Eagle Premier was starting to go on sale, AMC was still offering the Eagle at the time, and that in return had its design roots dating back to the 70s. And despite that car being very cutting edge for 1980 when the AMC Eagle first came out, offering a shift-on-the-fly four-wheel drive system, it was very much long in the tooth by the time the Eagle Premier had come around.
As for Chrysler, it sees a strong future for the Eagle Premier. Since the Premier's chassis is a new design, it's far more modern than any current Chrysler-designed sedan. We think there's a lot of truth to the rumors that the Premier will now be the basis for many future Chrysler products. So despite what you might read about Jeep, if the Eagle Premier and its offspring succeed, it will be the best asset acquired by Chrysler since Lee Iacocca himself.
It is a shame that Chrysler did not give the Eagle brand the recognition that it deserves today, because honestly it was just too much for Chrysler to handle. I mean, to think that the Eagle brand was aimed squarely at the European markets, let's say Ford's AmeriCorps division, and of course you have Saab, Volvo, Audi, it just really wasn't given much of a chance. And by which I mean, by the time the Eagle Premier went on sale, Chrysler was already working with Mitsubishi, and they made cars like the Eagle Talon, famous these days for being part of the tuner community with its 4G63 four-cylinder turbocharged engine and all-wheel drive. But it did pave the way forward for Chrysler, being the basis of the future LH cars, the Chrysler Concorde, the Dodge Intrepid, and the Eagle Vision. But it's a shame that it just never caught on, the Eagle Premier. It never caught the imagination of the public, and quickly became rare. My car, being a 1990 model, is one of just 14,000 built for that year. And sales started okay for 1988 because they sold 45,000 for that year. So it was just a slippery slope from then on. But the Eagle Premier was an advanced car for the time, and it showed in the video done by MotorWeek. It's just a shame it just never caught the imagination. Anyways, I am going to end this video here today, but if you enjoyed this, feel free to like, share, and subscribe to McElroy's Motors today. Thanks again for 1,000 subscribers, and I'll have more videos coming along soon. Thank you so much for watching.